This is the Reporter's Notebook, hosted by Elaine Shane.
Welcome to this entry in the DTN Reporter's Notebook. DTN Ag Meteorologist Bryce Anderson joins us today, and we're looking at the fall weather outlook. We started the fall season without a major freeze or any frost events. How important was that for the crops this year?
Well, I think it was vitally, Lane, and that's probably an understatement because we know that during the past spring it was so wet and so cold for so long that planting was incredibly late. We were clear into June before row crops finally got completely planted, and there was even an incident or two of soybeans getting planted in early July, and that was single crop soybeans. And then that, of course, brought on the idea that if we had a normal first frost date, that it was going to be extremely detrimental to crops and probably cause some premature loss and things like that. We got into September and had a very mild month with a lot of temperatures that were well above normal, and the frost date has held off until clear into October easily. And so because of that, that's going to mean that in all likelihood the freeze damage is going to be minimal. And we also are going to be able to hold down on drying charges because there will be a fair amount of grain that will be able to have been dried down to proper storage moisture out in the field.
So what's been driving this crop season weather-wise?
The circumstances that we have noticed the most have been that the Pacific has been in a neutral phase, neither El Nino nor La Nina, all the way through the growing season. And that has allowed for a little bit more of an emphasis to be placed on shorter term weather features. And so because of that, I know that we've had our periods of very hot conditions, and we also had the very wet weather to start out the springtime, but it has allowed for a little bit more of a give and take in the atmospheric patterns. And because of that, I think that it's been a feature that at least allowed for some semblance of normalcy in terms of crop conditions. Now, no year is normal anymore, it seems, but certainly because we had more of a neutral Pacific, did not have any real strong upper air regime set in, it definitely helped crops to rebound quite substantially after last year.
How long has it been since we had sort of a neutral Pacific year?
It's been a long time. I mean, really, we would have to go back probably to about 2008, about 5 years since the Pacific was neutral. During several of the past few years, in 2010 late, all the way through 2011 and even into 2012, we had a very strong La Nina effect. And obviously we know what happened. Yields were really not too terribly good, relatively speaking, in those years.
So with this neutral pattern that we're seeing, how's this affecting the forecast looking ahead?
I think what this means for us is that as we go through the fall season, we're basically going to have a fairly normal year. And by that I mean, are we going to have some periods of wet weather? Yes, we will. Are we going to have some periods of cold weather? Certainly. But is it going to be a season that gives a lot of real substantial delays because of cold and wet conditions? I don't think we're going to see that. I think we really are going to have more of a transitional pattern going on, a lot of zonal flow out of the Pacific, and that is really, I think, quite beneficial when we think about both taking care of harvest along with getting fall field work done.
Is there anything that makes you nervous yet about this fall?
Yes, there is, and that is that we're going to be watching what goes on in the high latitudes around the North Pole very closely, because last February there was a very powerful area of high pressure that formed in the upper atmosphere that really blocked the progress of storm systems coming eastward out of the Gulf of Alaska, basically shoved them down over the Midwest. Now, if that happens again in a fairly short period of time, then we could have the whole forecast scenario switch to one where it would be cold and wet as we finish out this fall season. It doesn't look like that's happening, and that I think is one reason why at this point we're fairly optimistic about how the season is going to shape up.
Thanks, Bryce.
You're welcome.
With Bryce Anderson, I'm Elaine Shane, and that's today's entry in the DTN Reporter's Notebook. Thanks for joining us.
This has been the Reporter's Notebook from the DTN Progressive Farmer Newsroom.